5 cars Collector Snobs Inflated. I loathe collectors, I've mentioned it multiple times. People think I'm joking when I say that there are actual people in this world whose goal in life is to deprive others of ownership and never drive the car, but that's actually real. For example, as much as I respect Rick Hendrick and his career, the fact that he was so quick to say, "I'll never drive this car, not even a single mile," it just rubbed me the wrong way. If you can't drive all the cars in your collection, start selling them to others who can. They need to be on the road, they're cars after all. And if you don't put them on the road, well, you'll be met with rather hilarious consequences, and we'll talk about that with my first entry, the Shelby Cobra. The original Cobra used to go as high as $8 million, but most are only around $1 million now, which is a massive drop. And the reason behind this has to do with replicas. Since starting this channel, I've always been one of the few advocates who actually loves replica and kit cars. In the case of the Cobra, replicas served a greater good. You'd think the existence of a mass-produced replica would have devalued the desire for it, but instead it added onto the legacy. Instead of the Shelby Cobra falling into hands of collectors and never seeing the light again, thanks to well-made replicas, we still see this car's legacy out there on the road. And most of these replicas are actually modernized and feature better handling than the original. I don't care if it's not the original, what matters to me is that it's keeping the nameplate alive. Someday, all the authentic ones will admittedly be hidden away in some garages 6 stories below. But as long as there are fanatics skilled enough to build replica ones, people will still have this car etched into their mind and their heart, because they'll see it out there on the road, right where it belongs, and I'm sure Carroll Shelby would also want them to be out on the road. And when collectors try to come back up from their hiding holes to try to attend events and shows with their authentic one, there will come a day where that gloating just won't work because it's going to get lost in the sea of well-made replicas. To the average onlooker, it'll no longer be heralded as an untouchable $1 million classic, but rather as a beautiful roadster that's only worth 40 grand, and that's the way it should be. Imagine that. Imagine having spent $8 million on a car for the clout and never drive or share its experience, only to someday have it show up to a show and have some car guy park right next to you and get more attention. And the funny thing is, he's going to actually roll into the parking spot. Meanwhile, the collector will be trailered in like a sissy because boo-hoo mileage. Get outplayed, collectors. Dodge Viper. After production ended, certain generations of the Viper have slowly been going up in value. While for the most part it is holding steady due to its production numbers, there will come a day where demand will outpace the supply and it's gonna skyrocket in value. For now, the car is still affordable enough to end up in the hands of many car guys, but one by one, the collectors are bubble wrapping them up and shelving them away. I'll pray that Dodge brings back the Viper nameplate someday to hopefully stop this wretched path, but for now I ask that any car guy who dreams of owning a Viper, stop dreaming and just make it a reality. The Viper was made for us. Manual transmission, hardly has any driver assist, wants to murder the crap out of you. It was a very raw car, both in appearance and performance. The car deserves, no, rather it yearns to be on the road. The 6-year-old me who grew up using this car in Gran Turismo 2 is genuinely frightened by the possibility of never seeing one of these on the road again. Ford GT, 2005 to 2006 models. The 2005, okay, technically they're made in 2004, but you get the point. The 05 Ford GTs currently go as high as 600 grand for heritage models, with normal ones going from 300 grand to 400 grand. Even accident history ones with high mileage will still go for 200 grand or mid 200 grand. But what if I told you that you could get a brand new one from Superlight, which is the company that makes the SLC? Superlight also makes a replica 2005 Ford GTs. The kit starts near 50 grand, but it lacks the powertrain, paint, and wheels, so smack in a Coyote, supercharge it, get a 6-speed Tremec, and paint it whatever you want, and you're gonna be in the ballpark of 86 grand or something. And including labor if you can't build it yourself. There's a YouTuber named Zakari3030 who puts out amazing work on Superlight's products, and he charges a decent fee to build it for you. There are many other people you can find who can also build it for you, and it will be run around, like I said, the 100 grand mark if you don't build it yourself, but honestly, that's a really good price compared to, well, the actual things that are way too expensive. And it's at this moment that I realize this video has just evolved from a topic of collector cars that inflated to just full out replica warfare. You collectors can collect all the cars you want, but us car guys, we'll just wait for the copyrights expire and build a dang thing from the ground up. You know, in the end, car guys are always gonna win. It's gonna happen one day or the other. I remember when scumbags like Gas Kings, who's now in jail by the way, anyways, he would always badmouth replica cars, and it led to one of the most toxic, elitist phases that internet car culture has ever seen. I'm out here trying to heal the damage that he's caused, and honestly, there absolutely are replica builders who are fake flexing wannabes, but they're such a minority. The way he portrayed it was that every replica owner was a douche. Look, the vast majority of replica owners have been at this business for several decades now and have been doing a lot of classic cars and are even starting to move to modern cars because, like I said, copyright expires someday. People still want the car even 25, 50 years later. And it's really cool and humbling to have fully fledged car enthusiasts just start a business and actually build the dang thing perfectly. Yes, there are people who butcher and make awful looking Lamborghini replicas, but for every awful garbage looking replica, there's at least 10 beautifully done replicas. I promise the next entry won't have anything to do with replicas. It is the Acura NSX first gen. Wait a second, hold on, wrong video. The Acura NSX first generation. Anyways, the first gen Acura NSX was hailed as a simple and reliable supercar, and Japan's answer to Ferrari. Why am I talking about its history? I have a whole video for that, and let's be real, most of you guys watching this video already know it. You're just here for the prices. Look, most of these cars, for the earlier models, pretty good price, but I'm going to talk about the later models first because, well, to put it simply, collectors have skyrocketed their value. They're well past six figures, and by the time the price is that high, its barrier of entry is high enough to the point that it's gatekeeping car guys. Like, the only people who are buying cars at those prices are people who are just intending on using it as a 401k plan or to just keep collecting the dang things. Fortunately, if you want earlier models, you can still buy those. They're slowly starting to escape our grasp as they're starting to get really expensive. I mean, does anyone remember when, like 3 years ago, you could find a manual NSX for like, what, 37 grand? I forgot what price Hoovy bought his for, but they were there. It's only been 3 years. God, it feels like forever. Struggle to find one for 60 grand. You can find like riced crap ones for like 40, 45 grand, even 55 grand. Wow, these cars really have gone up in the past few years. This was a car that I actually was looking at buying 3 years ago, along with the C6 Z06, because those cars were actually within earshot price range. Like, it's kind of funny saying that when now they're just worlds apart. The NSX just soar a new Taba to a whole new dimension. And before we get to the number one entry, here's the honorable mention, the 1999 Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. What makes this one special is that the 1999 model year was a one-off year for the newest design. A design so beautiful, in fact, that if you were to park it next to modern supercars at a beauty pageant, it'd win with a landslide victory. The VR4 of 1999 model year, they were so few that they're starting to finally reach collector status. And I say finally, but they've been doing it for the past 2 years already. And these are cars that were once sold for under 10 grand about 5-7 years ago. I mean, can you believe that? Now they go as high as 40 grand sometimes, and you'll be lucky if you could find one for like 20, 25 grand these days. Heartbreaking to see such a Crown King tuner like this. You can always get older model VR4s and they'll perform the same, but God, is this one beautiful. And finally, on to the Crown King of collector appreciation, the one, the only, McLaren F1. Did you know there was a point in time before the recession where rich people actually thought the F1 would tank in value? Yeah, that didn't age well. Urban Dictionary's definition of the Bugatti Veyron, that sure didn't age well either. Imagine thinking that the McLaren F1 is chump change compared to Bugatti Veyron. The F1 soared to $25 million where it sits today. And it was only 15 million a few years back and only 10 million a few years back. This car just keeps going to limits beyond. Meanwhile, the Bugatti Veyron has dropped to 1 million and even lower, and this was a car that originally fully optioned could be had for 3 million, which that's good news for Bugatti fanboys. You guys can actually aspire to own your car someday, but this entry isn't about that. Anyways, the F1 holds the title for the world's first hypercar, which, by the way, yes, is still a real word. I still have people try arguing with that. Look, the word car comes from the word carriage. The word hypercar came from the word supercar. As time goes on, new words are made, blah, blah, blah. All words are technically fake. We're all just random humans making random sounds who've decided those random sounds mean something. And guess what? Hypercar means something, and this is the first one. Having said that, it still holds a more important title, which is the fact that it is still the world's fastest naturally aspirated car. And one of the weird hypercars that has 3 seats, if that also counts as a title, it's kind of funny. But its center mount seat is definitely worth the quirk of it. Anyways, I definitely think the hype train went way over the horizon on this one, because the car, it's not going to be legally reproduced as a replica anytime soon, because the copyright is still a bit far from expiring. And let's be real, when it does expire, McLaren is not going to sell the rights to it. They're going to buy it right back, because they're swimming in cash from all the warranty repairs, and they're not going to let a nameplate like this ever reach mass production status ever again. Just a side note, the V12 in the BMW 850 Ci, it's similar to the BMW V12 found in the McLaren F1. It's not exact, but the reason I mention that is, you can find a lot of 850 Ci V12s available for sale today for very cheap prices. So if anyone's planning on building a replica once the copyright expires, legally, you can build one illegally right now if you want, you'll know where to start. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you want to learn more about cars that aren't replicas and are sick of hearing me talk about them, go check out these other videos to learn more about car culture. Other than that, thank you for watching, and see y'all next time. Blade Angel out.